Hey, Ben, thanks so much for joining me. Something I've been waiting to get my teeth into. I've ticked off the easy stuff. I got the nursery going, but the finances, I was like, right, what do we have to do? The first thing that made me realize that I was amiss was my health insurance. I was like, that's just for me. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
damn, I'm gonna have to start expanding that out. And it made me think more and more about the different protections I need for my family now.
Yeah.
Now, you're a family of or father of four. Could you tell
Yeah.
us a bit more about, what should we be doing at the very least as we prepare to have kids from a financial perspective?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, thank you for having me. But yeah, I think obviously some of the things that are important when you have children is just to protect your family. So obviously I presume you're earning an income which you're going to have to budget because you're going to have to take into account extra costs which you may have already thought of. But one of the key things is to think about how you protect your family if anything were to happen to you. So this could be something as minor as just you can't work due to sickness or illness, or it could be something as extreme, which is horrible to talk about, but you lose your life and your family are left without you. So there's different products out there which can help and protect you in those scenarios. You mentioned health insurance, which is obviously good, but it's kind of tailoring that to suit what you need when you've got a family and you've got children.
Mhm.
You've got to look out for them as well as yourself now. So, some of the key products to think about is income protection. So this is a policy where if you are off work due to any kind of sickness or illness, so as long as the GP has signed you off for any reason, it could be something like depression, anxiety, you've hurt your back, you've broke your leg, or it could just be a normal sickness, anything like that. What will happen is the insurer will pay out a monthly income to cover your loss of income that you're losing from not working. So this is a really good product, and it just kind of helps you with if you budgeted to be able to afford nappies and kids' school fees, anything like that. At least you know you're still be able to afford those things if you're off work sick.
And tell me,
So
with that, Ben, with that income, if you are a freelancer, how do they factor that in? Do they take an average, or is it your policy cover decides how much you get?
yeah, so basically, when we looking at income protection policies for people, we'll look at their current income. Most insurers will go up to 65% of what you're actually earning. They don't tend to pay 100% because, unfortunately, there are people out there who would just utilize that and take that as their income and never go back to work. So they make it 65%. So it still pushes people to go back to work when they're feeling better. But what we would do is we'd look at your income. If you're self-employed or freelancing, they would look at an average of what you've been earning over the last couple of years. So what you've declared to the taxman. So if you complete your tax return, whatever figure you put on that, they'll pay up to 65% of that to cover. Obviously, if you're employed, it's a bit simpler. It's 65% of whatever your annual
Mhm.
salary is.
And just to jump on that too, I'm a limited company. Would they go on what I paid myself on the tax return or what my business did on
They'll
the
use
tax
what you
return?
Yeah, so they'll use what you're paying yourself for the insurance. So that's something to consider. So if you're limited and you're not you're keeping
Mhm.
money in the business, obviously you've got to factor that in because they'll pay you 65% of what you're drawing out in salary and dividends. So you've always got to consider that if you're a limited company, it might be worth if you're going to take a policy that is starting to pay yourself a slightly higher salary because then it's going to benefit you when you come to claim on this kind of policy. There are other products which I'll talk about in a minute which aren't based on income, which might be able to help in that situation. But with the income protection, that's how it
Mhm.
works. It's 65% of what you're drawing.
Okay, so level one we got here is just if you are not able to work, you want the presence of mind to go, we still will be able to cover these things. And I would say 65% is probably more than enough for most families to cover their general expenses and what the baby needs. In general, budgeting, we often say 50% of your income should go on bills. So that's kind of 50% at most, 50 plus 15 for the baby. Okay, so that's level one. Talk to me then
Yep.
about what we do. Like I say, I come from the stunt world, so all of us are freelance and all of us don't like paying tax. So we pay ourselves very
Yep.
little, which is a problem when we
Yep.
try to get a mortgage, which a
Yep.
lot of us got stung by. But then it looks like insurances will also be an issue. Is there a workaround for that? Is there a secondary product we could take?
Yeah. So there's something called family income benefit. Okay. So this is the type of policy. It works slightly differently. So it's if you were to be diagnosed with a critical illness, a serious illness, and each insurer has a list of what these illnesses may include, but it's things like cancers, heart disease, liver failure, strokes, any kind of serious illness, which mean you're going to have to be off work for potentially a long period of time. It'll also pay out actually to your partner or spouse if you were to lose your life, so it covers that as well. But what it does, like the income protection, it pays a monthly amount, but you can set the monthly amount of whatever you want it to be. It isn't based on what you're earning in your job at the time. So if you're a limited company and you're only drawing a small salary out, it doesn't matter. You can set it to pay whatever you want it to pay you. Obviously, the more cover you have, the more it will cost you in monthly premiums. But if you're diagnosed with one of those critical illnesses or serious illnesses, or you to lose your life, your family will receive this monthly income until your children are no longer dependent on you. Normally, we'd say that's 23 at the moment. That's kind of the average age because children tend to go into education for longer now. So until your children turn 23, you'll continue to get a monthly amount if you're diagnosed with any critical illness on the insurer's list or you to lose your life.
Okay. So in that situation, if it's more serious on a long term, we can then choose the income we want to get as opposed to the 65%. And if it's
Yeah,
something smaller, if for instance, I mean, if I broke my leg as a
yeah,
stuntman, then
yeah.
the income insurance would be more in line with what I've got because it's a temporary time out of work, and they would pay me that
Exactly.
much. Okay.
Exactly that. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, exactly that. So the income protection will pay you 65% of what you're drawing, whereas the family income benefit is for a more serious illness, but it'll pay you whatever you want it to pay you.
Mhm. Okay. So we have that income of varied descriptions depending on whether it's short-term or long-term loss of earnings. What about the more serious stuff if you lose your life? That product in place, I'm guessing, is just a life insurance policy. Uh, will that do a similar thing? Would you typically have both in place?
Yeah, so I would always recommend family income benefit for anyone with children because that's the one that's going to give you the monthly amount until your children are not dependent on you anymore, whether you're seriously ill or lose your life. But then I'd always recommend alongside, like you're saying, a life insurance policy. Now, if you've got a house and a mortgage, you would normally have enough insurance to cover the mortgage, so that could be cleared. But also, I'd always recommend a lump sum just to help your spouse or partner out during that period while she's still trying to support the children. So it'll depend on your lifestyle and your bills and what your outgoings are, how many children you've got, all these kind of things will be factored in. But yeah, a life insurance policy would always be recommended alongside. If you've got any children, any family, always recommended alongside any family income benefit or income protection.
All right. And you mentioned there the life insurance policy could pay off the remainder of your mortgage. So you would work that out, I guess. If you had 200,000 left on your house, you'd make sure the life insurance policy pays you at least 200,000 at, well,
Exactly
probably a
that.
lot more than that, but you would want at the bare minimum 200,000.
Yeah.
Would you then also take out a mortgage insurance policy, or do those things kind of, is it one or the other in that situation?
It would, I mean, we'd always sit with you guys and have a discussion and work out what you felt you needed. Some people will say, as long as I've got life insurance to cover the mortgage, so a mortgage protection policy, like you say, which is a
Mhm.
decreasing policy, which would follow the mortgage balance as it came down, but it always pay the mortgage off. And then they've got the family income benefit and income protection to protect their dependents. They'd be happy with just that. Other people want a separate life insurance policy on top, so they get a separate lump sum given to their family as well as having the mortgage clear. Because it might be that the the life insurance covers the mortgage,
Mhm.
the family income benefit covers some of the bills, but your partner may also need some money to be able to do extra stuff with the kids. You know, things that
Mhm.
you maybe you don't really consider, but you might still want to be able to take them on holiday
Mhm.
and treat them to days out or put them in private school. Those kind of things that maybe the other two aren't going to quite cover.
Okay. So in this situation, it sounds more and more like the kind of the right thing to do is really to sit down with someone like yourself to actually discuss your needs and wants and exactly what you would like in each circumstance to make sure you're not doubling up on certain policies that may be doing the same thing. And I'm assuming there's going to be an insurance policy out there too that may do all three of the things under one house, and you there'd be different premiums, and you want to make sure you're not paying double.
Yeah, you can have a multi-policy with one insurer which covers every aspect. So
Mhm.
what we will do is we'll have a meeting with each individual. We'd sit and chat to them, get all the details, work out the situation, what their current lifestyle is like, what they plan to do in the future, how they plan to bring their children up, what they want to do with them, and how they want to support them. And then we'd recommend which policies we think would fit to meet the needs of that person. Say some people need more cover than others, but also you'll still have a budget to work towards. Like we talked about at the start, you're having children, you've got to work to a budget anyway.
Mhm.
And you might say, right, I've budgeted this much for bills, this much for food, this much for nappies and nursery costs. So I've got about this much left to cover my insurance costs, which of course are important. And of course you need to have a lifestyle as well. So you've got to factor some money in for that. So we would say, right, okay, you've got £100 a month to spend on insurance. Let's see how well we can get you covered for that amount.
Mhm.
Because what we don't want to do as well, like you say, is overcover people and have double up on stuff. You want to make sure
Mhm.
you've got just the right amount of cover to protect you and your family.
All right, sound. And you mentioned it there with the budgeting for a kid. I don't know about yourself, but I got into budgeting very late in my life, like age 39, where I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, there's this thing that can tell you like fairly reliably how much you have left over and where your money's going. But
Yeah.
I imagine for a lot of dads, having kids is if they haven't started budgeting, it's going to be the first time they see it. And I know my
Mhm.
initial feeling was kind of apprehension. It feels like admin. It's one of those strange things, a little bit like doing an invoice. Although you know it benefits you, you don't want to do it. It's one of those
Yeah.
strange things. You see it as paperwork and you go like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't see it as
Yeah.
the tool that it is. You don't see it
Yeah.
like the gym. You don't see it like, oh, great, there's this place that I can use the things and I can be better.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
it feels like a hard work. What is some of the advice you give to people that are just like looking at budgeting or a little bit apprehensive to get into it, especially as a father?
I'd say you just need to make sure you're spending time doing it. I think that the most of the work is in the initial looking at it, planning it, preparing it. Um, it depends how you work. Some people will have an Excel spreadsheet and they'll list all their outgoings and then put figures next to them as what they expect them to be. You'd have to do a bit of research because if you haven't had a child before, you're going to need to understand what that's likely going to cost. I'd always over egg it rather than under egg it because
Mhm.
sometimes it could be more than you think. They need a lot of nappies, especially in the first few months. So things like that, and try and write it all down, and then give yourself an idea. Okay, this is what my outgoings are likely to be, and then put your income next to it and say, right, is my income covering it? And if so, by how much? What am I left with then to spend on extra
Mhm.
stuff? It might be that you write it down and all of a sudden your income's less than what you've got. So then you've got to go back and say, okay, where can I save money? Can I reduce money on the food bill? Can we go shopping somewhere else? We currently shop at Marks and Spencer's. Can we go and shop at Aldi and save some money there? There's ways to then say, well, can we call up Sky and reduce our cost of our Sky bill? There's loads of things you can do, but once you've written it all down and what your outgoings are going to be, and then written down what your income is, you'll know straight away whether you're within budget or you're going to be without it. So it's about planning and preparing. Like I say, some people might use an Excel spreadsheet, some people might just write it down in a notepad on a piece of paper, but you certainly want to be jotting it down somewhere because if you try and do it in your head, you'll lose track.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
Even the notes app on your phone these days, people use that kind of thing.
it is very much like dieting. It's one of those things that when you say to someone how much you eating, it's always like I don't even eat that much, and
Yeah,
you get
yeah,
them to keep a food diary, and you're like, are you sure? And
yeah,
one of my favorite shows was Secret Eaters, where they put
yeah,
cameras in the house and they actually
yeah.
count, and you're like, your mind is great at like tricking you into thinking
Yeah,
a certain reality exists that doesn't.
yeah,
Certainly for me, one of the biggest things was just seeing how many subscriptions I had that I didn't want.
yeah,
Free trials, like
yeah,
for me, I used Excel spreadsheet first, and then I used an app called Money Hub. Money Hub is amazing because it connects to every single one of your accounts, including your mortgage, including
yeah.
Auto Trader and how much your car is worth, and American
Mhm.
Express, which a lot of them don't. And then it gives you like all your expenses in one go.
Yeah,
Again, like you
yeah,
say, the initial investment of time, because you have to start categorizing. It kind of
yeah,
prompts you and it goes like, we think these are groceries, but you have to confirm it. And that's
yeah,
like the first time you do it, I think it does minimum 3 months worth of expenses, but it can go back a year. So you can
yeah.
be in there for like an hour, hour and a half of just
Getting
going
ready.
like, So I
Mm.
often say to guys, just do like bits at a time. But once you got it set, it's very good at knowing. But it just helps you because it actually gives you a bar of income and outgoings. And again,
Yeah,
I think so much of it is just seeing where you are.
absolutely. Yeah, and there's some like you said, there's some really good apps and stuff out there which could help as well. Yeah. So if you want to use things like that, they can be beneficial. But yeah, it's all about spending that time, like you say, working out where you are, and then if you're within budget, fine. But if you're not, that's when you need to go back and look at things like subscriptions and stuff like that that maybe you don't need anymore.
And just to dial back a second, so we've spoken about the financial protection products. What about the kind of financial admin, wills, power of attorney, stuff like that?
Mm.
What should you have in place now? Again, this is the first time a lot of people are going to be thinking about these very serious things. But which
Yeah,
ones need to be done before baby arrives or soon after?
yeah, well, definitely, without a doubt. Now, a lot of people I think, well, everything I've got is going to go to my partner and my children anyway. But if you've got a will in place, it makes it so much simpler, so much easier. It makes the process quicker for your family in a tough time. So definitely want to be contacting someone to go and have a look at your will. Make sure you've got one in place. Not only for financial reasons, but for things like if something's to happen to you and your partner at the same time, where do you want your children to go? Who do you want to look after your children? Because what you don't want is them going into care, ideally. So
Mm.
you want to make sure that I mean, I'm sure that you've got family that would support you, but you want to make sure that you've allocated that to someone and said, well, I want it to go to my mum is going to have the children if something happens to me. So it's things like that to consider as well. But yeah, and of course the finances need to be outlaid in your will as well, just to make it simpler in that process. So definitely a will. Um, the other thing is to look at your financial plan for retirement because when you're having children, you're going to be spending a lot more money, maybe supporting them and helping them. But what you need to make sure as well is that you've thought about yourselves and what's going to happen to you when you retire. So making sure if you haven't already got a pension, get a pension set up because you want to be when you're doing your budget, and this needs to be factored in. So if you're self-employed, for example, you may not have a pension, so you want to have a pension set up so that you're putting money into that regularly, and that's included when you're budgeting, so that you're not forgetting that because potentially when you retire, it might be the grandchildren by then you want to be looking after, but you'll still want to be able to go out doing stuff and afford to have a nice life.
Hmm. I like the way Dave Ramsey always puts it with regards to pensions. People always ask him, should I be putting it to my pension or my child's college fund? He said,
Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing. The chances that you're going to retire is 100%. The chances that your kids want to go to college, like
yeah,
that's a maybe. And the
yeah,
one
yeah,
thing they won't be able to do is study very hard if they have to pay for you or look after you because you can't afford. It's that case of putting that mask on yourself first before helping the kids. You're no use if you're old, decrepit, and poor.
no,
Like that's
exactly,
a hell of a
exactly.
burden.
Yeah,
Um, and who would help with something like the will or power of attorney? Is that a solicitor?
yeah, solicitor, or there are will writers out there, so people who are
Mhm.
qualified in purely just doing will writing. So yeah, you can go to a will writer, or you can go to a solicitor. Solicitors that there are solicitors that do it as well. So most solicitor practices will have someone that can do a will
Sure.
within them, or if not, if you search up will writers in the local area,
Okay.
there's plenty around that do just purely that. And then with the pensions, it's a financial planner,
Mhm.
so someone who specialises in investments and
Mhm.
pensions.
And now just switching you from this purely financial side to also now the father side, what
Yep.
were some of the surprises for you financially having? You got four kids. Like, did it
Yep.
get easier financially, harder? Were you less worried about it? Like, what was that like?
Yeah.
The first time you had kids, was it like, damn, this is so much? Or was it like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought? What was that experience like?
Yeah, there's some shocks. I think there's things that you don't realise. Some extra costs. They go through a lot of clothes very quickly because they grow quickly. So you have to buy a lot more clothes for them. So when they're young, the thing you're thinking about is clothes, nappies, milk. I mean, the price of baby milk these days is just going up and up and up
Mhm.
from what it was when I had my first child, who's 15, to now my last child, who's only 5 months. It's almost doubled in price. It's mad how much milk has
Mm.
increased for babies. So there's things like that to factor in when they're young. So that's where the costs tend to be then. And then as they get older, because I've got teenagers as well, the cost then is fuel running them around. They constantly want money to go to the shop, go out with their mates. They want new trainers, but the new trainers when they're young, what, 30, 40 pounds. The new trainers they want now £120. So
Hmm.
yeah, they're constantly wanting more and more. And then one thing to really be aware of when you factor in your budget is probably to have a section there where you're putting money away for key times in the year, because when you get to Christmas, it's going to cost you a lot more than what it did
Mm.
when you had no children. So when you've got four children like I have, Christmas can be a very, very expensive time because everything's going up with inflation, prices are increasing. And you want to make sure you're getting them all the same amount of stuff. So it's never a cheap time. And then it might be that you want to take them on holiday once a year, so you've got to kind of have money aside for that. So it's factoring those kind of things in when you budget, which is things I probably didn't realize when I first became a dad. Is the extra expenses throughout the year. And then they've all got a birthday as well, obviously, which
Mm.
you've got to factor in. So yeah, there's
I
things like that.
see. So is that budgeting really ground zero is budgeting when they're a baby? That's actually fairly easy comparatively to then as they get older. So you may as well
Yeah,
get into the habit of knowing where your money is and being able to put stuff aside for different times. Do you then put it into
absolutely.
different pots, or do you just kind of mentally allocate, oh, this I'm going to need X amount later in the year, that birthday here, and so on?
Yeah. I tend to have, so what I do is I have, obviously you've got your current account where you're
Mhm.
paying your bills from. Um, then I'll have a savings account just for general life savings.
Mhm.
Then I've got a pension that I pay money into every month for retirement. And then I've got a second savings account, which is purely for events through the year, which are going to come up, which are going to cost me things for the kids, like Christmas, birthdays,
Mhm.
holidays, stuff like that. So that's how I spread it out. Obviously, everyone's different on how they want to do things, but I find that a good way to do it for me because I know I've got this savings account just for purely savings for if the boiler breaks or you need a new car. You've got this one for your kids and your events through the year, and then you've got your pension for retirement,
Mhm.
and then your current account for your day-to-day living and your bills.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same as you. I prefer to have it separated. I find that that makes it so much easier for me to have a better understanding of actually where I am at, to look at the
Yeah,
account and go, no, that's how
yeah,
much you have. Because sometimes in the stunt industry, I can tell you it's common practice to have your tax, your VAT, your current account, and your savings in one pot.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
even when you know that it's not true, it's hard when you go somewhere to go, I can get this because you see
Yeah,
that
I got the
figure.
money in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just
yeah, yeah,
your brain just goes like, now my trick now is I keep my current count at almost like dangerously
yeah.
low. So I'm always feeling a bit like, okay, just be
Can't spend
careful.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that does a lot for me. But I guess it's step one is finding out where you are and then, using your brain to your advantage with these tools in place.
yeah.
Are
And
there
it's contacting people as speakers, like people like us, we can help with things like that. So there's people out there who can help you. It might be that your financial advisor specializes in mortgages and insurances, but it doesn't mean they won't sit and have a chat with you and talk you through budgeting whilst also helping you set up the relevant
Mhm.
insurances.
Gotcha. And speaking of which, Ben, where can people find you? Of course, I'll put a link to it below, but where can they find you and what kind of services do you guys offer?
Okay, so yeah, we've got a website, which yeah, you put the link to, which is
Hmm.
qfinancialservices.co.uk. We're also on Facebook, Instagram. Um, we have got a TikTok, but there's not a lot of content on there yet. But we're trying to build that up. And LinkedIn is the other one. But in terms of what we do, so we specialize in commercial finance and mortgages. So we do mortgages, insurances, and we also do commercial finance. So if you're a business owner, you need to fund a business purchase or you're looking to invest in something, we can also help finance that as well. So really anything kind of financial, we can normally help with. We've got links with will writers, financial planners who do pensions, anything you kind of need, we can normally help you with, whether it's us doing it directly or passing to one of our partners.
Nice one. Hey, well, Ben, thank you so much for your help. I'm sure I'll be checking in again once I actually have the kid and I need a little bit
Yeah,
more advice about where to get the good stuff. But
no
until then,
problem at all.
thanks so much, bud. Take care.
No worries. Thanks, Doug. Cheers.